My name is Emily Carter. I'm 42 years old. I'm a pediatric nurse and I live in Houston, Texas. I never imagined that I would tell something like this. What I experienced was not a dream. It was not a hallucination. I really died. And when my heart stopped, Jesus took me to see something that would change my soul forever. I'm here because he gave me a mission. And if you're listening to this right now, know it. It's not by chance. What I'm going to tell you can shake everything you believe about life and about death. Click on the like, subscribe, and stay with me until the end. Because what the dead are doing right now will shake your heart. Who I was before I died, before all this happened, I led an ordinary life. He worked at St. Luke's Medical Center caring for sick children. My routine was intense but rewarding. I saw miracles every day, but I also saw many goodbyes. I have always been a woman of faith, but with silent doubts. He prayed, yes, but often without answers. There were moments of emptiness, as if God were far away. Maybe you understand what I'm saying. That week, I was exhausted. Double shifts, lack of sleep, and a flu that didn't seem to go away. I remember feeling a strange pain in my chest, like pressure. I thought it was just stress. On Saturday night, after putting my son to sleep, I went to my room, and everything went dark. I felt the world go out, as if someone had turned off the reality switch. The night my heart stopped, it all happened in seconds, but it felt like an eternity. My body fell on the bed. I couldn't move or speak. But there was something strange. I was still conscious. Suddenly, I found myself floating above the room. I looked down, and there was my motionless body lying down. My face was pale, my lips purple. A sense of panic ran through me for an instant. But then something inexplicable happened. A deep peace enveloped me. It wasn't human, it was heavenly. It was as if someone was saying, "It's okay, you're safe now." At that time, I saw my husband run into the room. He screamed my name, tried to wake me up, called 911. Rescuers. They tried to bring me back, but I tried to bring me back. It was no longer there. I was pulled up as if gravity had reversed. A tunnel of light appeared before me, but it wasn't just light. It was life. Pure, vibrant, welcoming. Every particle of that place seemed to know my name. I was enveloped by a love so strong that I cried, even though I had no tears. That's when I heard a voice. She didn't come from outside. It came from inside me, but it was someone else. And that voice just said, "Come, Emily, I want to show you something." The tunnel and the living light. The tunnel was not like the ones we see in movies. It was not made of walls or stones. It was as if space itself was folding before me, drawing me in with a sweet, irresistible force. The surrounding colors had no name. It was a living mixture of gold, white, and blue that moved like silk floating on water. The light there didn't just illuminate, it passed through me. I felt as if every broken part of my soul was being healed as I went along. Around me, I noticed the presence of beings. I didn't see faces, but I felt the vibration of love coming from them. They watched me tenderly, as if they had been waiting for me for a long time. There was a sound. It was no ordinary music. It was something I felt instead of hearing, an eternal, soft, and glorious choir, as if the sky breathed. I felt complete for the first time in my life. No pain, no doubt, no weight, just belonging. And then, at the end of the tunnel, he showed up. There was no announcement, no trumpet, just a more intense light that stood out among all the others. And in the center of it, Jesus. He did not say his name. He didn't have to. When his eyes met mine, I knew it was him. Their eyes did not judge me. They welcomed me. They had infinite depth, as if they knew every tear I've ever cried, every mistake I've made, and yet loved me with full force. His arms opened, and at that moment, without him saying a word, I collapsed. I fell to my knees. Or maybe I just surrendered. His presence was so powerful and at the same time so gentle that I felt small but completely safe. And it was there, in the midst of that glory, that he spoke for the first time. His voice was like the sound of the waters, but clear as the morning, and he said, "Emily, do you want to know what the dead are doing now?" The encounter with Jesus, when Jesus asked me that question, "Do you want to know what the dead are doing now?" My heart was filled with a reverent silence. It was not fear. It was something deeper. A mixture of humility, wonder, and an unshakable certainty that I was before the creator of life himself. He approached. His every step resounded not with sound, but with truth. It was as if the ground, or whatever that heavenly space was, responded to his presence, blooming beneath his feet with glows that seemed alive. Her hair was like strands of golden light, gently curling in the breeze that came from nowhere. But it was his face that I will never forget. It wasn't exactly like what we see in the paintings. It was much more. It was perfection and humanity in one look. When he smiled, something inside me fell apart. All the guilt, all the resentment, all the pain that I hid for years. It simply evaporated. I didn't have to explain who I was or what I had done. He knew everything, every decision, every fall, every prayer whispered in the dark, and yet, he loved me. Jesus reached out and helped me to my feet. His touch was like liquid light. It didn't burn. It healed. And then, we walk. I found myself walking beside him through a garden that seemed endless. The trees had leaves that shone like emeralds, and the air. The air! It was like breathing hope. As we walked, Jesus was saying things to me that I felt more than I understood. Words about purpose, about how each life matters, about how death. It is not the end. He showed me images of my own life, but also of other lives. People I never met, but who were all connected by an invisible thread of eternal love. And it was then that he stood before a kind of veil, like a curtain made of floating light. He looked at me with a serene intensity and said, "On the other side of that, you'll see what few have seen. What are the dead doing? Right now." I felt a chill down my spine, right there in that perfect place. I didn't know what awaited me, but I trusted him. Jesus placed his hand on the veil, and the light opened like a living window. What I saw, it would change everything forever. The question that changed everything. Do you want to see what the dead are doing? When Jesus opened, the veil of light, what appeared before me, was not an ordinary place. It was as if I were seeing two worlds at once. On one side, there was a peace so deep, so bright, that it made the heart cry with joy. On the other, a darkness that hurt, just to look at. It wasn't just the absence of light, it was the absence of God. He turned to me with a look that mixed compassion and urgency and said, "The soul does not sleep, the spirit does not remain inert. Everyone continues to live, each in the place. He chose while he lived." Those words hit me like silent thunder. And then he began to show me. First, I saw an open field, like an infinite expanse of golden light. There, thousands, perhaps millions of people walked, sang, studied, prayed. But it wasn't something repetitive or monotonous. It was as if each one was discovering more of God every second, diving into depths that never end. I saw a lady reading something that looked like a living scripture. Beside her, children played with creatures that seemed to be made of music. I saw a man kneeling, not because he had to, but because he was overflowing with gratitude. Jesus said, "These are the ones who chose me in life. They are growing, working in eternity, preparing for the big day of restoration." But then, the scene changed. I felt the temperature drop. The light was being sucked in by deep shadows. Now, we were facing a gray, dry, timeless landscape. There, People did not shout. They whispered, as if carrying the weight of an eternity of memories. I saw a young man sitting with his hands on his face. He repeated, "I had a chance. I knew it. I heard. But I chose to ignore it." Beside him, a woman walked in circles, muttering disconnected sentences, reliving choices that had taken her away from the faith. Jesus did not look angrily. He cried, "Yes, the King of Glory was weeping, not because he had rejected them, but because they had rejected him." He said, "Here are those who did not want to know the truth. Some scoffed, others postponed it. Everyone thought they would have more time." My legs weakened. It was impossible not to feel the weight of it. Jesus then put his hand on my shoulder and said something that echoes in my heart to this day. Death is not the end. It's the beginning of eternity, and each one writes their direction with the choices they make now. At that moment, something inside me awoke. Everything that used to be theory, religion, tradition, now it was real. What the dead were doing was no mystery. They were reaping what they had sown, some in endless worship and learning, other in silent laments, wishing to turn back time. And it was there that I realized the greatest pain of eternity will not be the fire, but the consciousness of truth rejected, the rest of the righteous, a place of peace and purpose. After that heavy and gloomy vision, Jesus led me back to the side of light. It was as if the pain I had just witnessed was healed just by being close to him. We returned to that field of glory, and as we walked, I saw more and more details. Eternity was not an infinite boredom, as many think. It was life, in its purest, fullest, deepest form. There, no one was standing still. No one floated aimlessly in clouds. The righteous had eternal tasks, purposes, functions. But there was one fundamental difference. Everything they did was motivated by love, worship, and the joy of being in communion with God. I saw artists painting with colors that do not exist in the Terra, musicians playing instruments made of light. I saw scholars immersed in living books that sparkled when read, as if God's own wisdom breathed between the pages. And I saw reunions, people running at each other, hugging each other with such pure intensity that I cried just watching. I saw a mother hold the child she had lost as a baby. I saw an elderly man being greeted by his wife, who was waiting for him with an eternal smile. There was no sadness there, only plenitude. Jesus said to me, "Heaven is not just rest, it is advancement." Here, mine continued to grow, knowing, loving. And it was then that I realized something even deeper. No one there felt envy, anger, comparison, or pride. There was no ego. Each person was exactly where they were supposed to be, doing exactly what they were born to do, since before the world existed. I saw children learning from angels. I saw multitudes sitting, listening to words that came straight out of the mouth of Christ himself. And even there, in the midst of glory, they waited. Yes, even in the sky, there was expectation. Jesus explained, "They rest, but they also prepare, because the story is not over yet, because the big day is coming, the day when everything will be restored and I will return." I felt at that moment a tremendous responsibility. The righteous were at peace, but their mission was not yet complete. They prayed for us. They interceded. They cheered for the awakening of those who are still here, alive but spiritually asleep. Jesus looked at me and said, "Many live as if they were never going to die, and many die without ever having lived what I've prepared for them." Then he asked me a question. "Emily, do you understand now why I brought you here?" I didn't answer with words. I just cried. Yes, I understood. The agony of those who left without God. After contemplating the overwhelming beauty of the rest of the righteous, Jesus led me back to that other reality, the place where those who rejected the truth now live. But this time, he allowed me to get a closer look. There was no hurry. Jesus walked with me with a serious look but full of pain. He was not a harsh judge. He was a wounded father by children who have moved away. The atmosphere was dense, heavy. There was no visible fire, but the environment burned with guilt. The pain there was not physical. It was consciousness. It was a memory. It was the absolute absence of all that is good. Jesus explained, "Here there is no unjust conviction. There is only consequence. It was not I who sent them here. They came by choice, by living as if I had never existed." I saw people of all ages. Some seemed to wander, trapped in endless thoughts. Others were sitting, motionless, as if reliving their decisions over and over again. I saw a shepherd. Yes, a man who, in life, preached. But now he was there, muttering empty words. Jesus whispered, "He knew the scriptures, but he never really knew me. He spoke of me, but he loved the pulpit more than the presence." I saw a young man who repeated the same phrase over and over. It wasn't time yet. I was going to change. It was going to change. I saw a woman kneeling, hugging nothing. She cried, but there were no tears. She screamed, but there was no echo. Jesus said she knew the truth. Her grandmother prayed for her, but the world was more seductive. She wanted freedom, and now she is stuck with her own choice. The deepest pain there was, the distance from God. They didn't beg for comfort or food or water. They begged for presence, for the touch they would no longer feel, by the voice they decided to ignore, for the chance that doesn't come back. He said, "Hell is not just a place of torment. It is the lament of an eternity where I was not welcomed. It is the harvest of a seed that many planted thinking it would never bear fruit." My heart was crushed. Everything inside me wanted to scream, "Let me warn the world. They need to know. There's still time." And Jesus answered even before I spoke. "That's why you're here, Emily." Jesus took me to a kind of valley, but different from the previous ones. There, souls were not just standing still or wandering. They were trying to communicate. It was as if they were screaming, but no one on earth could hear. I saw a white-haired lady kneeling with her hands outstretched towards the sky. It said, "Tell my granddaughter that Jesus is real." That I regretted. Too late, that she still has time. I saw a young man, his eyes fixed on nothingness. His voice was a desperate whisper. I rejected it because my church was hypocritical. But Jesus was real. I just didn't want to see it. Let me know my brother. He's going the same way. Jesus looked at me and said, "They can't go back, but you can still speak for them." My heart burned, not of fear, but of responsibility. These people weren't just suffering. They wanted to warn you. They begged for one more minute, one more chance, one more service, one more conversation with someone who loved them enough to speak the truth. And then Jesus showed me something even deeper. The prayers not prayed, the forgiveness not released, the words of love that got stuck in my throat. I saw a daughter who never forgave her mother, a father who never said, "I love you" to his son. People who died with hearts full of sorrow, pride, and silence. These chains do not die with the body, Jesus said. They drag on into eternity. But it was not a speech of condemnation. It was a warning of love. I also saw those who were in paradise. And what surprised me was that they also wanted to send messages, but of love, of hope, of appeal. A mother smiled and said, "Tell my children not to cry for me. I'm alive, more alive than ever. But let them live for Christ, so that one day we may meet again." An elderly man exclaimed, "If I could go back, I would spend less time worrying about money and more time teaching about eternity." Jesus put his hand on my chest and said, "They miss it. They miss those who can still choose the path." What the dead meant was simple. Wake up. Don't leave it for tomorrow. Live with your eyes on eternity. After seeing so many souls caught between regrets and delayed prayers, something changed in the atmosphere around me. Jesus' presence shone more brightly, as if eternity itself were screaming for one last chance for humanity. He took me to a high plane, like a spiritual lookout. From there, I could see the earth, but not as we see it on satellites or maps. I saw souls, not bodies, millions of points of light, and also points of darkness, each living person, shining at different intensities. or erased, wandering in the shadows of deception. Jesus pointed to the earth and said, "There is still time. There is still fun. There is still hope." I saw people kneeling in dark rooms, men quitting addictions with tears in their eyes, young people tearing contracts with sin, hearts being touched by songs, messages, testimonies, like this one. He showed me that even with all the chaos, the Holy Spirit is still at work, in the silence of the early mornings, in small churches, in hospitals, on social networks, even in the hearts that say they don't believe. I saw angels moving in schools, prisons, businesses, the whole sky in motion, working, waiting, crying, because there is still time. Jesus said, "Heaven waits for repentance, not perfection. They hope for surrender, not for religion." And then he showed me something that cut me inside. I saw people about to die. Some from accidents, others from diseases they didn't even know. They only had days, hours, minutes, but they still had time. Some were played in their last seconds. Others have had visions like mine, but many, they ignored the signs. They woke up from a dream about God and went straight to their cell phones. They felt like praying, but they left it for later. Jesus looked at me with firm and tender eyes and said, "Emily, back. Tell them. Tell him there's still time." "But time is running out," I cried. I fell to my knees. I asked him to let me stay there, but Jesus smiled with the softness of a father and said, "Not yet. You have a mission." The earth called me back. The tunnel of light reappeared, but now it seemed more urgent, narrower, faster. And before I left, Jesus whispered the last sentence, "I'll be back, and those who are ready will enter into eternal joy. But those who despise the truth, they will see what they tried to deny." The light began to pull me back hard. I felt my spirit being reconnected to my body, as if it were being plunged back into the gravity of existence. It was like waking up from a millennial sleep with your soul on fire. But before I left that place, Jesus said to me once again, "You won't come back like before. Now you carry a truth, and it will burn in you until your last breath." In an instant, everything disappeared. I woke up in a hospital bed, surrounded by cold lights, beeping machines, and surprised people. One of the doctors said, "She is back. My God, she's back!" It was 7 minutes. 7 minutes in which my heart had stopped. 7 minutes in which the protocol said that the brain would not resist. But I was alive, completely lucid, more alive than I've ever been. But I knew I didn't come back just to continue life. I came back with a clear, urgent, non-negotiable mission. Shout to the world that eternity is real, that heaven is real, that hell is real, and that Jesus is coming back. In the days that followed, I faced looks of doubt, skepticism, mockery, but I also saw teary eyes, people kneeling, families being restored, because that message is not mine, it's his. Since then, every time I speak, pray, or tell this story, I feel the same presence that enveloped me up there, the same light, the same voice echoing inside me. Tell them that I love them. Tell him there's still time. Say I'm waiting. If this message touched your heart, don't ignore it. Maybe you're struggling with doubts, with pains, with the silence of God. But I tell you, he's there. He sees, he listens. He feels it, and he calls you today, now, because there is still time. But time is running out. Share this video, subscribe to the channel, comment below, "I choose eternity with Christ." Let's awaken hearts, let's save souls, let's announce to the world. Jesus revealed what the dead are doing now, and it's up to us to decide which side of eternity we'll be on.